Okay, so we're actually live now. We're here with Professor Nicholas Bloom and filmmakers of Pomonok Dreams, Terry Katz and Al Stark.
You know, growing up in Pomonok in the 1950s as a young man, you didn't even know what public housing was. You didn't think of it. This was your building, this was your court, this was your park, this was your school. Mm-hmm. I was envy. I tell you the truth, the people that lived in the private homes next to Pomonok, they were old and creaky. I thought I had it really great, so I had no idea.
You did?
Yeah, so it was like, I don't know what the projects were. What is that connotation? What does that mean? Right. It was a great place to live, a great place to grow up, and a great place to make friends.
And we've got some followers here. So for those just joining us, we're here talking to the filmmakers for Pomonok Dreams, which is a documentary about a public housing project in Queens, New York, as well as New York Institute of Technology Associate Professor Nicholas Bloom. And so we're just talking a little bit about public housing in New York.
Yeah. And Al, I think you brought up a point, which is that Pomonok is a city-funded public housing project, and so it really was built to standards which were more typical of middle-income housing, like Fresh Meadows of that period, and so forth. And that's one of the things that distinguishes New York from other cities, even today. When you think about it, is the willingness to basically build subsidized housing for a much broader range of the city's residents. I mean, really, there's a kind of continuity here, because what's new affordable housing is really very similar to what Pomonok was. That is, it's city-funded housing, really designed for kind of the working middle class of the city.
So, in terms of the, some of the main issues that you've been talking about in public housing, what are some things that you might be highlighting now?
Oh, you mean in contemporary public housing?
Yeah, in contemporary public housing.
Well, I mean, part of the issue with the Pomonok houses, and New York City built so much housing. We're talking about still about 178,000 units worth of housing.
We actually have a comment. This one person said the majority is poor now in public housing.
That has changed. Back then, Pomonok houses was designed for kind of this rising middle class, and today, really, public housing is a place where families who really can't afford the private market, right, in any way, even they don't have a horizon of kind of moving through public housing to like private housing. There's this enormous gap, right, between what you pay as a public housing resident or family, right, and the private market. So it's become much more long-term housing, right? It's for families who basically face, a private market that is really out of reach.
Mm-hmm. And a commenter on here said that it's kind of messed up that there is a huge gap now in terms of the actual demand, the need for affordable housing.
Kind of similar to what it was back.
I think it's gotten back. That you have crowded housing conditions now again. People are really piled up in housing. And so
Where is everyone tuning in from?
I just want to say, I never said I was going out. I was always going down.
Okay.
In my vernacular was always, Mom, going down, because I lived on the second floor. I had to go down.
Oh, he finally got St. Louis, Brooklyn, Harlem. Okay, cool.
We had the playground, we had the park. You would give the park attendant your key, and then you get a basketball or checkers or whatever game you wanted to play. You gave him your key, and then he gave you the ball or the chess set or the checkers set, knock hockey, and they play, and they give him back.
And there was a park attendant.
Absolutely.
Now that was the old model, right?
There was we had Satch and Joe for so many years.
Did they were they in public housing? In those
Yeah. Anybody living in public housing or any experience with public housing? Not just New York, but
Well, St. Louis is famous for the Pruitt-Igoe development. The big cities in the United States have mostly, a lot of them have pulled down their public housing, redeveloped it. Mm-hmm. I mean, New York is an outlier in terms of, it's a significant percentage of the total. It's about 178,000 out of about 1 million units left nationally in public housing. Now, around the world, there's a lot of public housing.
Someone here just came in, tune in. Someone's from Ukraine. Wow. What were some other themes that you talked about in the documentary?
For me, it was also the racial barriers. Okay, growing up, it was predominantly white, but it was always integrated. And Pomonok integrated at a much faster rate than the rest of the borough of Queens. So we had black neighbors, so there was no difference. If somebody was on your floor, they were on your floor. We didn't have those preconceived notions of other people, because we all lived together. And if you were in one court, you had a snowball fight against another court. It was black, white, but everybody, depending on where you live, not your racial background. So
Wait, so someone here said, I used to live there. So tell us, you used to live in Pomonok houses? Let's see if we get a response. But she was like, kind of like, you're kidding? What? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the themes about the documentary.
There was a community center. Al actually worked there. We had a man named Mr. Daddario, who everybody remembered.
So someone here has actually just said that she lived there in the 70s and 80s. I'm not sure if this person here worked there during that time?
he left to go to the Bland houses in Flushing in about the late 70s. So he was there for
Okay. This person said worked in the community center.
Really?
Or I worked in the community center is what the person said. Okay.
Well, the community centers were an element that were a holdover from the settlement houses of the early 20th century. The housing authority was created by people like Mary Simkovich, who created these kind of like craft and educational centers in immigrant neighborhoods. And so when they built the public housing, it was really important for them that they had these community centers, which were kind of settlement houses for the new public housing. So the kids were going to be organized. It was an organized play. They're basically it's keep them off the streets. Exactly.
So Maka NYC, she's saying that she worked there starting in July 1973. And she worked in the summer program at the community center.
That's where I got my start in the social service field back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, wow.
They want to know more about the film. Pomonokdreams.com.
Pomonokdreams.com. Watch the trailer.
So Pomonokdreams.com or our Facebook page, Pomonok Dreams.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.